All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Mike to New Haven podcast. It is episode 142. A lot has happened since we last spoke. I'll get to it in a second. If you haven't checked out the previous episode, that is one of the best shows I think I've ever done. Not because of anything that I did, but because the guests were incredible. And it's always the guests that really help the show. I'm not doing anything particularly special. And that was with Bob Starkman, retired U.S. Customs agent. Ralph Friedman, one of the most decorated detectives in NYPD history, and the real Donnie Brasco, Joe Pistone. They were all together on a panel, and that was a really, really cool show. So if you haven't checked it out, please go do so. Like I said, a lot has happened since that episode. A very, very somber weekend, very sad weekend. We had the loss of FDNY firefighter Christopher Viviano, who died of coronavirus, sadly, the 64th member of the FDNY to pass away from coronavirus since the pandemic started. Of course, there was the tragic shooting in Harlem of two police officers from the 32nd Precinct. One of them has since died of his injuries. That's Jason Rivera. The other one, Wilbert Mora, is critical condition, hanging on to dear life. And Dennis Smith, a friend of mine, passed away. He wrote Report from Engine Company 82. He was an FDNY legend, and he's sadly not with us anymore. Gone at 82 years old. So tough weekend. But we'll do the show tonight, and hopefully it'll serve as a pickup for everybody out there. And my next guest certainly helps in picking people up when they're down. There's two prongs to my next guest's form of service. One is a current NYPD detective with 13 years of experience, almost 15 years, I should say. The other as a helper to first responders nationwide. He's the leader of the Fund First company, which is centered on outreach and support to first responders, and that's Robert Garland, who joins me now on the Mike to New Haven podcast. Rob, tough weekend, but like I said, glad you're here.
Hey, Mike, thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure. And you're right. It really is a tough and tragic weekend with everything that we're facing right now.
Yeah. And it all happened in such rapid succession. Like I was saying, first the COVID death of firefighter Viviano, then the shooting, and the passing of Mr. Smith, who led a long life at 82 years old, but still it was just a very, very somber pall during the weekend. So moving, getting off of the somber topic for the moment. First question that I always ask my guests is, what was your childhood like? Where'd you grow up?
That's a great question, actually. I was born in Brooklyn. I was there until about 3 years old. Then I moved out to Long Island, Massapequa, New York, where I've been since then, since 3 years old. So for over 32 years, I've been in Massapequa, New York. That's where I grew up. I got three other brothers. They're all younger. I'm an oldest of four. And I have three kids of my own as well.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that on Police Off the Cuff with Mark DeMeo and Bill Cannon a while back. Massapequa was interesting because it's really a hub of civil servants. That Deer Park and Freeport has a lot of guys and gals that work either on Long Island as volunteers and then in the city as police officers and firefighters.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, Massapequa especially. They just, oh, you live in Massapequa, you're a cop. It's like instant.
Yeah. No, for sure. So I guess that made your foray into the job pretty easy. Your path was determined would it be fair to say, I should say, that your path into what you wanted to do for a career was determined at an early age?
I mean, I guess you could say it was. Originally, I wanted to play baseball. I played Division I baseball in college, college recipient. That's the path I wanted to go. My father was a detective. He retired. He got 3/4 off the job back in 95. And I wanted to follow in his footsteps. So I did join the job. I got on in 2008. And I followed everything. I mean, I went through basically almost the same career as he did. I ended up getting his detective shield, the same numbers in narcotics while working there. So it's pretty unique to be able to do that. It's not necessarily common that happens a lot. So following his footsteps, and then actually I got approved for 3/4, so I'll be off the job very soon as well.
Yeah. What was the injury you suffered?
So I was in narcotics, and we were down just really, executing so many search warrants in my career and everything that we've done. And I hurt myself during a routine arrest. Mm-hmm. And, very basic, we were executing an arrest, and basically my shoulder just popped out, and that was it. I have 2 anchors in my shoulder now, limited range of motion, and we go from there. But listen, I could carry my 3 kids, and that's all that matters.
Right. Well, at least, you have this Fund First initiative that we'll be discussing as we go along too. That is more than a good thing to transition into. Like I said, when I was introducing you from one form of service to another. So it's funny when I talk to all the guys and gals that were coming on the job, they're usually coming on the job when it was really, really bad in the city during the 80s and during the 90s when there was a lot of work to do. And that's not to say that you didn't have a lot of work to do, but you came on during a much better time for New York. This was when Ray Kelly was the commissioner the second time. Crime had reduced. There was still a lot to do, especially where you worked in Midtown North. But coming in, I said, well, going through the academy and coming into the job, compared to what guys and gals might have been told in the 80s and 90s, what were you being told in the academy, and what did you first see when you got to Midtown North?
So the job was definitely a different job when I got on, and I say that with not a lot of time on. Like you said, almost 15 years on the job. But training was very different. We were still trained under the same basic principles that the guys in the 80s and 90s were trained on, and which was great. We were trained to basically protect our own, protect ourselves, and make sure that, we know how to handle ourselves on the streets at all aspects, whether it be friendly encounters or arrest situations. But you're right. I did come on the job at a much softer time. It was not as aggressive. There was still a lot of things going on. However, throughout the entire city, as we all know, there's always crime. There's always things going on. But as you can see, times have changed quite drastically.
Yeah. So, well, first, before I continue, an acknowledgement to our friends in the live chat. Of course, Margaret Hearn and Alicia B. They're always here. Bill Ryan, retired NYPD detective, first grade from the Arson Explosion Squad, one of the co-creators of the miniseries that I have on the show called Tales from the Boom Room, in which I profile retired members of the Bomb Squad and the Arson Explosion Squad. And, of course, Raquel Pranzo, wife of retired NYPD Lieutenant Peter Pranzo, who worked during the crazy 70s and 80s in the 32nd Precinct, ironically. So I know this past weekend it's close to home for him. And Pete's here in the chat as well. So thanks, guys, for being here and watching tonight. So you spent the first 3 years in Midtown North, from Midtown South, from 2009 to 2010, Midtown North 2010 to 2012. Now, working there, it's not just the collars. They often say whenever you're coming on the fire department or the police department, you have a front row seat to the greatest show on earth. There's tourism, there's Broadway, there's all the different perks of Manhattan, and you're right literally in that crossroads. What did you most enjoy about those first 3 years?
Working Impact in Midtown South was definitely an experience. I mean, I did 2 separate tours. I did the first tour. First weeks we would do a week of days. So we do noon bars, noon to 8s. And then the next week we do 8 to 4s. And noon to 8s, that's when all the tourists are in, everything's going on. And, people are going to see their shows. There was a lot of activity, different things going on. Broadway was different at that time. Broadway was still opened up. It wasn't closed off yet. So there's still, lanes of traffic and everything. But on the night tours is when it got a little wild. Dallas BBQs would open up. There would be parties there until 7 in the morning. We had a lot of activity on 42nd Street, but it wasn't violent activity. It was more just congregating. It was a lot of, little nonsense things. I actually, I had I'll tell you about an odd arrest. There was a guy on 42nd Street, right by 4218, if you're familiar with the area right over there, on the Northeast subway. So the Northeast subway is standing over there, and I see him playing with something. I walk over, he's playing with nunchucks. I'm like, okay, we always joked in roll call, and I'm sure people listening in, you always joke about having that weapons collar, that weird weapons collar. It's going to happen eventually. Something's going to happen. So this guy's messing around with some wooden nunchucks, and it is a felony technically in the penal law. So I stop him. I start chatting with him. And I go, by chance, do you have any more weapons on you? And he goes, yeah, I do. And I go, oh, God. So before he says that, put him in cuffs and, for the nunchucks. Sure enough, he has a cane sword on him. So in his backpack was a sword with a cane. And then in his backpack were kabuto, I think that's what it's called. It was like these little hand tools that you could like break people's fingers with. He had those. He had a firearm as well. And it was just a random arrest on the 42nd Street at 5 in the morning. And it's just those weird encounters that we had at that time in Midtown, and everyone called it Midtown Soft. But those things were there. Things were happening. And now Midtown has gotten really violent. There's a lot of bad things going on over there. And it's really unfortunate with everything that's going on in the city.
Yeah, I mean, nunchucks, I think, just got legalized today, too.
Did they?
And I was joking because I used to watch wrestling in the 90s. I don't know if you remember Steve Blackman. If you ever watched wrestling,
yeah,
Steve Blackman, he was that kung fu commando guy. I'm like, Steve Blackman approves, because that guy had to have been the guy that you arrested. He had to have been some kind of enforcer or something to have that, or either that or just a common EDP to have that much on you.
We'll say EDP. Let's just say EDP. Yeah, we'll keep it at that. That's all it was. It's funny you bring up wrestling. I have a wrestling quote tattooed on me by Ultimate Warrior.
Oh, really? What's it say?
Yeah, you must show no mercy, nor have any belief whatsoever in how others judge you, for your greatness will silence them all.
Wow. I didn't know he said that. It's a deep quote. He's not with us anymore.
He said so many quotes. I mean, if you watch him, he was
Yeah,
out of his mind.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's he was one of the many characters of the '80s, and we'll leave it at that. So, you spent some time in grand larceny and anti-crime, which just came back as well. Now, anti-crime, I think, well, there's a lot of units in which, in the NYPD, in which you really have to use your brain. Emergency service, for example, is one in which you're in a position where how do I execute this rescue? What tool will I need? And there's other forms like arson and explosion. I was mentioning with my friend Bill Ryan earlier. What's the mindset of an arsonist? What's the mindset of a bomber? But with anti-crime, the way to use your brain is really to spot behavior and suspicious behavior at that. And human nature is it plays into everything in life, but especially police work. So for you being an anti-crime, tell me about learning to get, for lack of a better way to ask the question, that sixth sense as a cop.
Those six senses as a cop, and I'm getting chills thinking about it. So they come naturally to a lot of us, and it's very hard to teach. I spent time in grand larceny as almost like a training module. My commanding officer at this time, Inspector Baudet, who's chief on the job now, when I was in Midtown North, he sent me over to grand larceny because Midtown North, our violent crime, the things that were going on, was grand larcenies, burglaries. Robberies weren't really happening too often, but grand larcenies, burglaries, a lot of that, a lot of fake credit cards, money stuff. So at grand larceny, those guys specialize in that all the time. So I went there, I did a training session there, kind of under the table kind of thing. It wasn't an official transfer. I was there for, I don't know, a couple of months. I forget the exact time frame, but I learned a lot. And I specialized in fake credit cards and spotting fake credit cards from a mile away. Now, it's very difficult to do. There's a lot of embossing and all that kind of stuff that goes on credit cards. I don't want to explain too much because I don't know who's out there listening.
Exactly.
But,
don't. It's fine.
But that was something that I became a specialist in. And coming back into anti-crime, that was one of the things that we would look for all the time. People using fake credit cards in these high-end stores on Fifth Avenue. Between the Apple Store, Versace, Burberry, you name it, they were all in those stores using fake credit cards left and right and getting away with it. So we would position ourselves in there and find the fake credit cards. That was one of the high crimes. Another high crimes, so to say, was forcible touchings. We had so many people by the trees and all that kind of stuff. A lot of sick, perverted people out there. And we had some very odd encounters with that. And it was disgusting seeing what was going on with children as well. But that's what we did for the most part. We didn't make a lot of drug arrests when I was there. And that's really why I wanted to transition out of it, because that's, the mindset I was in. I wanted to be around drugs, which sounds wrong saying that, but I wanted to be around drugs.
There's just different ways you wanted to be around it. You don't want to do them. You don't want to sell them. You wanted to stop the flow of them and the people that were dealing them. There you go. Robert Garland is our guest here on the Mike to New Haven podcast. He's currently an NYPD detective, although, as you mentioned, he'll soon be off the job as a result of an injury that he suffered during an arrest. But not to worry. He's running the Fund the First initiative, which we'll be discussing in depth momentarily. And the thing that is interesting about the fraud aspect is that there's so many counterfeit goods, but people don't care. You have the rare consumer that is looking for the actual good, or goods, I should say, that will get ripped off. And but most people, they want the counterfeit jersey. They want, because it's less costly. So, it's tell me about that, because it's difficult to enforce it when the consumer really doesn't care, because that's what they're after in the first place.
Yeah, they were after it. I mean, it's not, I don't even think it's really enforced too heavily anymore with any of this kind of stuff that's going on. But we never had too many complainants that were the person that purchased something they think it was real when it was fake. It was rare that we had any of that. It was mostly finding it out on the streets. It was finding the people that are actually selling these things. The fake bags, which ridiculous. I tried to stay away from it and not really get my hands involved with that kind of stuff. I was more involved with the people that were sending fake credit cards to other people and embossing their names on it, using the fake credit cards to get away with it, using gift cards, all this kind of stuff to really scam people and, buy new iPhones left and right, buy these really expensive bags left and right, and then sell the expensive bags for a profit on the streets.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny because it reminds me of shoes. Like there was one person who copped some Jordans in air quotes. And on the back, instead of, the iconic photo of Michael leaping from the free throw line to make a dunk, it was instead Jordan with like legs extended, like he was doing a split and a butt crack. So, but then again, it was the user that posted it wasn't even angry. It was more in a comedic sense because, especially, I've seen this, and shame on these guys for doing it. I got to get a bag from my girl, but I can't go get the real one, man, because it does cost an arm and a leg. So that's, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but these people will always be in business as a result of that. The credit card thing is another thing that you can stop, but selling the goods themselves, that's a market that was once black upon a time, but not anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's still going on. It's always going to go on. And it
Right.
is what it is. What are we going to do?
Unfortunately. So that brings us to your promotion to detective. You mentioned you have your father's shield. Now, when you become, well, as a patrol officer, I shouldn't say that. You become an investigator upon detective because you're doing some form of investigations on patrol as well, just not to the level that detectives do them. But nonetheless, actually being now a specialized investigator for whatever the unit may be, there are those senior detectives who are the salt of the earth, who've seen a thing or two or three that take you under their wing. So for you, who are those detectives?
No one. There was none of them. And I'm sure some of the people listening will laugh at that. When I went to narcotics, I had high aspirations. I wanted to go there. I wanted to take over the world, trying to solve every drug crime in the city. And the older guys that were there at the time, they're basically, "Hey, new guy, all right, see you later," and that was it. You try to start a case, and I won't get into particulars on how we did stuff, but you try to start your cases and do things and investigate different drug cases. And you'd go up to one of the senior guys, because I didn't care. I'll talk to anybody. And I'll go up to one of the older guys that has 15, 20 years on me, that's been there for 10, 15 years, and say, "Hey, Chris, how do I do this? Go figure it out yourself." I'm like, okay. And I did. But that's what I did. And, it was tough, but I got to narcotics at a different time. Now the guys that are getting into narcotics, everyone's helping out everybody. It's a different job right now. And again, I don't have much time on the job, but when I got there, it was still OCCB. We weren't under Detective Bureau. It was still its own entity under OCCB, which it was exciting to be a part of. When we merged, things changed a little, but it was an exciting thing to really get into narcotics and learn how this job operates on a different level.
Yeah, and I've covered this before with the guys that were in OCCB, excuse me, at different points in their career. For those of you that may not remember, OCCB stands for Organized Crime Control Bureau. But, when we think organized crime, because of the movies and the TV shows and whatnot, we think the mob. But it's so much more than just that, which was fascinating to hear about. Sometimes, as I discussed with Mordecai Janansky, former counterterrorism detective, it was the Jewish mafia at a time. It was obviously the street gangs, those peddling narcotics, all of that, even those selling counterfeit goods. All of that is a form of organized crime, if you think about it.
Yeah, I actually had a major case while working in narcotics. I mean, the majority of the time when we're in narcotics, we were doing our buy and bust operations, where we're going out with our field team, we're buying drugs in the streets, we're bringing them back in, we're bringing in, processing 10 to 20 people in a night, really going crazy, not sleeping. Then the next morning, we're waking up, going to execute a search warrant for one of our cases, then going back out on the streets, so you don't have any sleep, your eyes are popping out of your head. But it was fun. I loved it. I loved it. And I would go back and do it in a heartbeat if it weren't for this injury. In a heartbeat. I loved it. But when we merged with DB, I was in Manhattan South Narcotics, and Manhattan South opened up a module for gang, and they put me on a gang team because I was always running high cases. So cases where they were about to hit a wire and we just never got there. About to hit a wire, never got there. And I was, people going away for A1 felonies like crazy. Weight distribution of cocaine, heroin. They're going away, going to jail. So when I got put on this team, it was a little bit different. It wasn't necessarily so much what we did in narcotics. It was more of like an anti-crime mix. So we're still doing our buy and bust. We're still doing our executions, but we're also doing street enforcement on a different level, a little bit different. So when I got there, I said to myself, I want to start a gigantic case. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. And it happened. It came to fruition from a weed arrest, a marijuana arrest, something that's legal now. But a marijuana arrest led me to a cocaine buy. The cocaine buy led me to a poker house. The poker house led me to what's called 36 search warrants, 72 arrests, one of the biggest takedowns that Manhattan South has ever seen back in August of 2018. August 3rd, 2018. You look up brick and mortar in the news, it's everywhere. That was the name of the case, name of the takedown. It was a giant execution. It was a lot of fun. I mean, we had guys that were running drugs Lower East Side, if you're familiar with like East Fifth Street, that type of area, Avenue C. They were running drugs that whole area, pushing it up into Midtown where the poker house was on 10th and 6th Avenue. There was a legit poker house. It was a $2 million house that they were renting out and operating as a poker facility. And our undercovers would be in there, and they'd be, playing games. They'd be playing poker. We had Bitcoin involved also. We were playing games online at the same time as being in the house. So we were doing that as well, buying drugs. We had a lot of things going on. When I took down this case, we had one door in Florida, one door in Georgia, one door in Massachusetts, one door in Connecticut, one door in Yonkers, and then the 30-plus doors in New York City itself, all in one night. And when you put together something like this and you're a lead investigator on a giant takedown, you have to put it all together. Your bosses aren't helping you out. No one's helping you out. You're doing it. You're focused on it. And what I did was I put together this giant case. I had 350 detectives through the entire city at this takedown with me. It was incredible. Absolutely incredible. And I'm the one telling them, all right, you guys have this door. This stack is going to be hidden this door, this door, this door. And I gave the go button. It was go time. I took the main house, which is the poker house, which we felt the two main perps were going to be at. And we were right. They were both there. And it was funny. When we hit that door, the main guy, I'm not going to say his name. He's in jail anyway, but I just won't say his name.
That's fine.
The main guy, when I chased him in the poker house, he throws a phone. And when you're up on a wire, this is a wire case. You're supposed to close the wire. So you pick up any phone lines that you're on, you call the wire, you say, hey, close it, close it, close it. So this guy, we couldn't find his phone. And I go, hey, where's your phone? He goes, right here. I go, no. You know which phone I'm talking about. He's like, how do you know that? I go, where is the phone? And he threw it outside and it was stuck into all the garbage. We ended up getting it. It was fine. We were able to close it out. But doing that night and getting phone calls after taking down everything, all these, search warrants being executed at the same time, and getting phone calls left and right. Hey, we got 4 guns at this location. Hey, we got 2 kilos at this location. Hey, we got $300,000 at this location. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Are you going to swear out another search warrant? Are you going to do this? And it's like your head's going to explode. You don't know what to do. Right. And then finally, when all the bodies are brought back and we're processing, we had to close down one police plaza in the basement, process all these bodies. When we brought them all back, I was the last one to get back because I wanted to go to all the locations and make sure everything was searched. It's my case. Right. I want to make sure everything was done right. And these guys are calling me, when are you going to be here? We want to process. When are you going to be here? We want to process. And, I understand the aggravation and why they wanted to get through it all. But at the same time, I wanted to make sure everything was perfect. And then after that, after you do all of that, the chief, at the time, Chief Aubrey, he goes, hey, Bobby, are you tired? And I go, yeah, I haven't slept in 3 days. All right, we're just going to do a press conference. Just come upstairs in 1PP, go wash your face or something, and you're going to be in the news right now. I'm like, oh, my God, you got to be kidding me. But, it was a fun time. It was an exciting time in narcotics. And I got to tell you, I learned so much, and I realized what I was capable of. And by doing that, I was able to transition into the business world because I was able to realize how much I'm capable of, in my mind, to handle a caseload like that. And I said, I've always had aspirations of going into the business world and starting something special. And I said, if I could do this, that's easy. Right. Because running a case like that in the NYPD, and for anybody listening and anybody that's done search warrants, just the search warrant alone, there are so many phone calls you have to make. Imagine doing 36 of them in one night. It's insane. It's absolutely insane by yourself. I'm not a type of guy that really likes to ask for a lot of help. I like to just do it because I want to know that everything's done the way I like to do it. Because when you get other hands involved, everyone's like, I want to do it this way. It's just easier. Boom, let's get it done. Boom, 1, 2, 3. But I miss it. If it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for my injury, I'd still be there. I got recruited to go to a specialized unit that's really, you don't know many things that go on with the NYPD with this type of unit, but it was like an underground unit, and I got hurt and I couldn't go. I was buying drugs online using cryptocurrency. It was crazy. We had shipments on the dark web. We were having shipments overseas come into our building. And what's hard is, if you're familiar with cryptocurrency at all, are you familiar?
A little bit. I don't dabble in it. I don't. I'm old
okay, well, you should.
I know.
Yeah. You should. With the dip that's going on right now in Bitcoin, you need to buy. Definitely buy. But anyway, with cryptocurrency, everything's tracked to the blockchain. And when you're using a blockchain, it's, even though everything's there, it's anonymous, right? And it's very, very, very hard to get an actual pinpoint of an actual person unless their IP addresses are not masked. So with this, the guys that we were buying from, they were masking everything. And the best that we could do was fingerprint any packages that we were getting with drugs. So the first time that I called ECT down to our command, I said, hey, listen, can you guys come down? I need fingerprints pulled from something. They go, well, what is it? And I got, just come down here and I'll explain when you get here. And it's in a package, and it was cocaine that we had shipped from overseas. It was in Europe. I know this guy was in Europe. I never got him, by the way. Never got him because I got hurt and I wasn't able to finish the case. And the guys, no one knows how to really do that. I think there were only 3 other people in the whole NYPD that knew how to handle cryptocurrency transactions through the job. And no one knew how to do it. So I couldn't really transfer it over to anybody. So we just ended the case. But yes, people do get away for selling drugs. It happens. But anyway, when this came over, it was in a package. It was basically 3 8-balls of cocaine. And I want the fingerprints lifted. So ECT looks at this and they go, are you kidding me? We can't do this. They call in their bosses. We can't lift fingerprints off of this. I'm like, come on, we need to. It's the only way I could do this case. We need to. We never lifted anything. Nothing was lifted. It just, however this guy packaged it, he did it the right way. But that was super interesting to be able to do and be able to search for these people on the dark web and try to buy drugs. I won't explain how I did that either because then people will get ideas. But there are different ways to do it. That case, I tried to transfer over to Interpol over there because I knew where the guy, kind of a region where he was, but they didn't want it. I don't know why. Sometimes they don't want to handle it. But transitioning from that, like I said, into the business world, it was, life-changing. And, it allows for me to be able to do it. It allows for me to tell other people that anything's possible. You could make your dreams come true with hard work, and you could transition out of this job, because a lot of people look at the job and they say, well, I'm going to do my 20 years, I'm going to retire, and then I'm going to be a security guard. Or I'm going to do, private investigating, whatever it is. You got to think outside the box sometimes, and it takes a little work. It takes some reading, it takes some homework to really buckle down and get to the next level, but you'll get there. Everyone's capable of it.
I'm talking with Robert Garland here in the Mike the New Haven podcast, and I go back to a line that my late friend, Mr. Smith, who I mentioned at the top of the show, once said, in that he used to have written down in Engine Company 82 during its business peak during the war years, this could be the night, end quote. And for him, what that meant was this could be the night that we get the greatest job that we've ever worked, the biggest fire that we've ever worked. But in this case, as you started it, it started with the weed arrest. And I bet you didn't think it could translate into all of this, but nonetheless, that's the motto I think that it should be applied for police work too. This could be the night. This could be your biggest case. This could be your best job. And I think that a story like what you just told reinforces that.
Oh, yeah. No, it really does. I mean, we're always searching out there. This could be the night. But also at the same time, we always have to be on our toes. And, I'll swing into for a moment. I just want to say, it's so tragic what's going on with Jason Rivera and Wilbert Mora, and I just, it's horrible. It's horrible. And it's tough. We can't say that they didn't do anything wrong. Can't say that they didn't do anything right. They responded to a job, and they were doing their job, and that was it. And that was, the night for them. They weren't expecting anything. They probably went to roll call, joking around like any one of us would have. They were sitting in their locker rooms, putting their shirts on, thinking it's going to be any other night. And it's a tragedy. So, we look at it saying this could be the night, landing a big case, but also we always got to be on our toes and say this could be the night that maybe we're not coming home. Right. We always got to remember that we got to be there for one another and try to come home every single night.
Exactly. And I go back to the interviews I did with some of the old timers to talk about September 11th as an example. I'll never forget somebody telling me this off the air. I won't say his name, but he'll be on the show soon for my Bomb Squad miniseries. He was the commanding officer of the Bomb Squad at the time. He had Detective Bill Ryan in the chat knows him well. That's Detective Claude Richards. And Claude had just gotten back from bereavement leave because his brother was a war veteran who had died from complications from injuries in the war, and Claude would take care of him on his off days. That was September 10th. And they go out for drinks across the street from the 6th precinct at the bar, just to try to see where Claude's head was at. All right, good night, Claude. See you tomorrow. Next day, Claude was one of the 23 cops that got killed at the Trade Center. You never know. So you're right. This could be the night applies to that as well. So transitioning, I guess, into the initiative of Fund the First. Did this come about while you were trying to recover for this injury? And if so, I mean, you talked about how it makes it easier, given the big case that you work, to transition to business. But nonetheless, to get something off the ground, it's one thing to have the idea. It's another thing to actually take the initiative. How hard was that part for you?
So starting the business came from actually one of my closest friends on the job, and he was my sergeant at the time in narcotics, Jason Stocker. His daughter was born, and excuse me if I get choked up talking about this.
It's fine. It's okay.
His daughter was born with a rare illness, Alexander disease. And when she was born, 6 months in, my daughter was born 2 days apart, and that was my second child. We wanted to go through the milestones. Hey Jay, what's your kids doing? What words are they trying to say? Are they trying to walk? Are they trying to crawl? Are they throwing poop at each other? What is going on? Because his kids, they had twins, and his son Riker, everything was hitting perfect, but his daughter was not hitting her milestones at all, and they got really concerned. And Jason's wife, Brenneth, she's a nurse. She's incredibly smart person, incredibly smart. She did a lot of research, and they diagnosed their daughter after a lot of research, a lot of doctor's appointments, with Alexander disease. It's a super, super rare disease that's only affected about 100 people since like 1940. Super, super rare. So when that was going on, they were going through a serious, crisis, right? You're going through a financial crisis, a medical crisis, and, things start to weigh down on you. So what does everybody start to say when something like that's going on? Let's start a GoFundMe, right? Everyone says it because money that comes in, it's always a great thing. It feels good, but it's the support system that goes along with it that's really there. So I said to Jason at the time, Jason, let's start a GoFundMe. Are you okay with me doing a GoFundMe for your daughter? And he looks at me, he goes, Bobby, no, I don't want to do that. And I said, why? Let's just do it. I think it'll be great. And he goes, I don't want somebody somewhere else in this country using my daughter's face to benefit off of our hardship. And when he said that to me, I said, Jason, what do you mean by that? He goes, you know how many scams and how much fraud is on GoFundMe and these other crowdfunding platforms out there? He goes, how is anybody going to know which one to donate if ours is up and there's another one up? There's no way of telling. So the businessman in me went into overdrive right there. When he said that to me, I looked at him, and at the same time in that time frame, another one of our detectives, Andre Mazik, had passed away from a heart attack. Close friend of mine, I worked with him, awesome guy. And with those two things going on, I was like, there's got to be a better way to give back to people. Yeah, there's all these great nonprofits out there. But still, with nonprofits, there's not really any transparency. You don't really know how much money's going in and out. There's GoFundMe. There's all these things going on. But there's no centralized, verified way of raising money for our first responders, military, medical providers, nurses, teachers, their families, their friends, even nonprofits alike. There's no way of verifying any of this stuff. And with crowdfunding being around since 2010 now, in 12 years, why has that never happened? Never. Why has there always been these scams going on? So that started kicking in my head. And I was really going into overdrive. And I said, I got to do something. I have to. I don't know what, but I have to. So I put pen to paper. I said, I'm going to put pen to paper right now, and I'm going to start building something. And originally, it was called CMXI. And CMXI is like 9/11 in Roman numerals. And it read like a bank. I was like, this doesn't sound right. Why am I naming this CMXI group? It doesn't sound right. And we didn't really know where we wanted to go. And then I had basically a premonition. I was like, holy shit, excuse my language, Fund the First. Fund the First. It sounded right. We brought the idea to our developers. We hired, website developers. When we brought the idea to the developers, I said, this is what I want to do. I want to build something for our nation's heroes, for those who serve, to be able to crowdfund without having to worry about anything. Full verification model. How do we do that? And they looked at me like I had three heads. They go, well, that's going to cost a lot of money.
But it's worth it.
I said, well, yeah. So I said, yeah. I said, it is going to cost a lot of money. And when people hear that, most of the time, what do they say? They say, I'm going to bootstrap my company. meaning they're going to come out of pocket. And I'm a huge advocate as a businessman, huge advocate for not doing that at all, because you put yourself in a hole. Now, when you're building a business, we put together an executive summary. We put together a full business plan, and I'm talking hundreds of pages of stuff, everything on how the platform works. And if anyone's visited fundthefirst.com, you'll see it's an intricate platform. What we built is something for those who serve their families and their friends to come to and to fundraise. Mike, you could come on our platform and you can organize a campaign for me. I can go on the platform and organize a campaign for you. It's all the way it's verified. By you doing it for me, there's a notification that gets sent to me via email, as long as nothing's happened to me and I'm available. I get sent via email that you started a campaign for me on fundthefirst.com. I will then verify through ID.me. ID.me is a verification processor. They're building out Web 3.0 right now for verification across the country. They're one of the biggest companies in the nation. But we're partnered with ID.me. And by doing that, we allow for all beneficiaries and organizers in certain instances to verify and allow for donors to have a true and honest source to donate their money to. And that's what's important in the space of crowdfunding. So we launched in July of 2019. We've been on the news over probably 150 times. I've been on Fox and Friends 3 times, NBC, you name it. We've been there. We've been all over the place. What we've done for the nation in 18 short months is 293 crowdfunding campaigns that have raised a combined $2.9 million. The average crowdfunding campaign on our platform raises between $7,000 and $10,000. It's incredible. And we are just the median. We're the platform that people come to. And we're blessed to say on top of that, we're blessed that we were able to be the ones that hosted the campaign for Jason Rivera and Wilbert Mora. That campaign is currently ongoing on our platform. Members of the 32nd Precinct organized it on our platform. All the money will be going to those two families. And it's currently at $290,000 raised in 2 days. 2 days. So that's incredible. Fundraising comes from a direct and personal connection. So, Mike, if you're raising money for me, you're going to be sharing that fundraiser. You're raising money for me, not from me. For me, you're going to be sharing that fundraiser with your immediate networks. I'm going to be sharing it with my immediate networks because it comes from an emotional connection. That's why people donate. People that are maybe listening to this that don't know me or you, they're not going to donate. They're going to donate if they know the cause. Well, what just happened with one of our officers being tragically murdered and another one on life support right now? People are going to donate because that's why we have 3,200 people that have donated so far, because it's being shared everywhere and people are relating to that because people have loved ones that are on the job. People have loved ones that they've lost on the job. People have loved ones that are retired from the job. So they're all connecting to that emotionally. And that's the power of our platform. We have that emotional connection and we have that honest support system because of our verification model. It's so important in crowdfunding, and that's why we're here. We're so blessed to be able to provide the nation. We have 293 campaigns across the nation, not just New York, the whole nation. We're so happy to be able to be here because we're combating the common fraud and scam that are seen on these other platforms. And eventually we want to be that household name. We want people, when they wake up and they want to do a fundraiser, to get their kid a new skateboard. And because they are able to verify as a first responder or military, whatever it may be, they could do that fundraiser on our platform instead of the verb. What's the verb right now? GoFundMe, right?
Right.
But we want to become that next verb, fund the first. And there's
you have that. Sorry to cut you off. You have that credibility, being someone that comes from the job. That there is no thought of, oh, this guy or this gal might not be legit. Having gone through loss yourself, even if you didn't know these guys, the cops that from when you came on the job, and I'm not counting cops that died of heart attacks or died of illnesses related to their work at Ground Zero, just the cops that died in violent incidents from your time on the job, starting in 2009. We think of Omar Edwards, a friendly fire tragedy, Peter Fagoski. Of course, there was Ramos and Lou. There was Randy Holder. There was Brian Moore. There's Paul Tizzolo, Minnesota's Familia on top of that. And just now, of course, with Brian Mulkeen and Brian Simonson, and just now with Jason Rivera and Wilbert Mora. So
Sakos,
I guess
Sakos too.
That's true. Sakos, who was not shot and killed like the others, but was ran over by a drunk driver. That's another one. I thank you for reminding me of him last April. So with these initiatives, I know you're not contacting the family right away. Listen, they need their time to process what they just went through. But how soon and how are you able to get in touch with these families?
So it all depends on the specific campaign. In this instance, the members from the 32nd precinct were the ones that were verifying. So they verified because they are, and you were able to determine that it's true and honest source where the money's going to. We're in direct contact with the family already. I haven't personally reached out to them yet. I want to give it time. We will reach out to them when the time is right, and we'll present them with the check. We don't like to get, hey, let's do a check presentation and get in your face and do camera stuff. I don't like doing that. A lot of these nonprofits are all about that because they're trying to do their image, right? I have my logo, right? Where is it? Right here.
Yeah, it's
right?
PR for people.
From the first. I don't want to do that. Where there's a time and place to do it, I'll do it. But in tragedies like that, the check's getting mailed. You're getting a check in the mail. They're going to get a check in the mail, and they're going to be beyond blessed, not because of the money, but because of the 3,500 people that donated to that campaign, the support system that came around it. That's why they're going to be blessed,
right.
And it's just in the fundraising world, we see it all the time. The second a tragedy happens, you're going to see a fundraiser go up within 3 seconds. And it's so unfortunate because of what happens out of it, especially cops. They do it a lot. They create a competition out of fundraising over someone else's hardship. Why? Why are we doing that? I don't understand it at all. No, I don't understand it at all. And that's why Fund the First was built. And I'm a heavy advocate. When something happens immediately, I'm doing my outreach right away. I'm calling departments across the country. I mean, listen, there was a cop killed in Texas last night. Last night, a cop was killed in Texas at 5 a.m. I'm on the phone. I'm on the phone with that department, and I'm letting them know we exist. I'm saying, listen, Fund the First is here if you need us as a support system, not use our platform to fundraise. If you need us as a support system, fundthefirst.com is here. It's readily available for you. Since this is a line of duty death, we have a program as well. We will donate $5,000 to that campaign. And we've done it so far with Rivera. And, let's pray that nothing happens with Mora and we don't have to do that as well. But any line of duty death fundraiser on our platform, we donate $5,000 to. So that's something, listen, it's not a lot, but it's a way of us saying we're here for you.
Right. 3 firefighters were killed in line of duty today in Baltimore City in a building collapse. A 4th is in critical condition. We just had the firefighter killed in line of duty in St. Louis. Have you been able to reach out to those departments yet? Yeah,
every single one. So we have technology is an amazing thing, right? And we've built a system for us to be notified of any death, any injury that goes on across the entire country. I'm not a type of person that I'm going to dish out, as you're aware when I was explaining my casework and how I do. I'm not the businessman that I'm going to say, if Mike, you were working for me, hey, Mike, do your outreach here, and then say someone else do outreach there. No, I'm doing it myself. I'm getting on the phone. I'm doing it myself. And I don't care if I'm not going to sleep because I'm going to let people know that I'm there for them as a support system as well. You don't want to use our platform? That's perfectly fine. Hey, do you need to talk? Do you want to talk for a few minutes? I'm here. Right. I'll listen to you. Whatever you're going through, I will listen to you. So I got on the phone. St. Louis, I spoke with. I let them know we exist. I think the fundraiser ended up going to a nonprofit. I'm not going to get into the whys it went to a nonprofit, but we could put 2 and 2 together. It went to the ones in Baltimore. I haven't heard back yet. Sometimes when it's so fresh, you don't hear back all the time. I do a lot of outreach. I'll do outreach on social media immediately. I'll do outreach right to the department via email, and I'll always call. So I'm doing like a 3-step process in order to get to these people and let them know that we exist and that we're here as a support system. If you need us, we are here as your trusted support system. Because the last thing we want to see with those firefighters getting killed, 3 of them, is Jim Smith in New York, Samantha whatever in Florida, doing a fundraiser and saying that they're raising funds to collect funds for these families. But guess what? On GoFundMe, the organizer of that campaign is connecting their bank account to that campaign. So how are you getting those funds to those families if you don't even know them? You don't even know them. What are you doing? What steps are you taking? That's why our verification model is so important. We verify everything, and everything's issued by physical check. By check. We're not connecting anyone's bank account. We don't want any fraud. We don't want any scams. There's no duplicate campaigns in our platform. There's one fundraiser for each cause, and that's it. Right. That is it.
What are some of your goals for the future with this fund?
I have so many goals. Well, Fund the First, I mean, the goal of Fund the First is to become a household name. That's what we want. is to become a household name. And I'm sure with your help, thank you for having me on the show. You know,
No problem.
more people that weren't aware of Fund the First will now understand what it is and why it's here. It's very important that people understand it, why it's here. That's the main goal of Fund the First. You know, to be there for everybody across the nation, and I mean everybody, because everybody can use it. There's always a fundraiser that someone needs to do. You know, you're selling cookies. Here's a fundraiser. We built a Kickstarter model into our platform. So if you're familiar with Kickstarter, Kickstarter is a crowdfunding platform where people can give a kickback, right, for donating to their business or their venture, whatever they're starting. We built that into our platform. So, Mike, if you were starting a T-shirt business, let's say, you know, and you were a first responder and you wanted to give kickbacks to people, basically you'd have the campaign set up on the platform, and you have a little tier system. And I don't know, can I share a screen on here?
I'm not sure. I would have to. I think you have to be
Share.
running the stream.
Okay.
Well, click share and see what happens.
Let's see. Hold on. Let's X some stuff out. Make sure no one sees my emails.
No, we would not want that.
Okay.
Garland,
share screen
podcast.
Okay. Let's see. I should be sharing the entire screen right now. Can you see Fund the First?
No, I cannot. Well, hang on. I have to click it. There we go. There we go. Now I can see it. There we go.
Okay, great. So if anybody's watching, this is fundthefirst.com, trusted fundraising for those who serve. We have these statistics on the homepage. It says stats update weekly. We just updated it. They actually update instantly. So as donations come in, you'll see we have 294 campaigns launched and $2.9 million raised. This is what I was talking about. Did you know? I didn't know that I can start a fundraiser and not have to be someone who serves. I didn't know that I could do a fundraiser for someone who doesn't serve too. So those are important things. This is everyone that's eligible: first responders, military, nurses, medical providers, teachers, all others. There's a description when we click on them. Our top campaigns that we've had on the platform. We show the top 4. So as you can see right now, we have police officer Jason Rivera and Wilbert Mora. It's raised $284,000 of a goal of $300,000. When it reaches $300,000, inevitably, probably by tomorrow afternoon, it doesn't stop. It could keep going. So the organizer can also change it and increase the goal if they want to. So, you know, as you can see with this one, with the Rybrook, this is a volunteer firefighter who actually passed away in a fire in his sleep. Horrible, absolutely tragic. Yeah. But this raised $203,000 of $100,000. You know, we did a fundraiser on the platform for the troops killed overseas, raised $161,000. So as you can see, you know, we have a lot going on. Nice little video. If anyone's watching, definitely click on this video and watch it. You'll get a full understanding of what Fund the First is. I mean, obviously, listening to me talk, you'll get that understanding as well. We go back up top for a minute. I'm going to show you something. We browse our campaigns. This is where all the campaigns are, right? So this is going by total raised first, and then all the way down to some campaigns raise $0. Now, I want to show you what I was talking about with the tier system. Let's see.
This is amazing.
So, what's that?
This is amazing.
No, thank you. So this is one of the campaigns that did a tier incentive campaign. He ended his campaign, as you can see up here. So no, you cannot donate to it any longer. However, he raised $15,000 of a $20,000 goal from 180 donors. Pretty cool concept. Former military, lives out in California. He was starting a crayon company called Edible Crayons. Pretty cool. It was an awesome concept. If anybody's in the Marines, they'll understand the inside joke from that. I'm not former military, but I came to understand the joke. So
I understand it too. I got some my old bomb squad friends and intel friends that were Marines as well.
Right. So now scrolling down, you'll see over here, Private Crayon Eater. You donate $25, you get this tier. PFC Crayon Eater. You donate $150, you get this tier. So this is what he did, and this is what he set up. But then there's also a custom amount. You could donate any amount. Pretty awesome concept that we built into the platform. You know, you've seen all the different tiers. Let me click on one that's active so you get a better look at it. Let's see. Veteran Hunt Camps. This one is trying to raise $5,000 from 12 donors. So right here, you click select tier. So now donate $1,000, you could hunt for moose. So when you select the tier, it automatically shows your tier in here when you're placing your donation. And again, it's pretty awesome right here. We're Better Business Bureau affiliated, so you can run us on the Better Business Bureau. We're there. Here's our partnership with ID.me. It's always there. Now, there's something really quick I want to show on the donation screens. And we don't have to go too deep into it. I just want to show the platform really quick for anybody watching. I'll stop sharing now. Come back to you. But yeah, thanks for giving me the opportunity to show that.
Oh, absolutely. And the audience was very, very receptive to it in the chat. I'm sure that those who will watch this in the coming days will be glad to see that as well. Because it does, there's always, and it's a result, unfortunately, as what you were talking about earlier, the actions of others. There's always going to be that skepticism. But when you see the website, when you see the amount of campaigns, when you see that Better Business Bureau certification, and obviously, as I talked about earlier, your background and your legitimate credentials, it further incentivizes the desire to go ahead and donate, because most people are good at their core. They're in the intentions, especially during a time like this where we saw the tragedy in Baltimore and St. Louis and Harlem on Friday night. The intention is to help. But sometimes that is thwarted by those who see this as an opportunity to further their own agenda, which is a destructive one in the form of scams and everything else that we discussed earlier. But to see that, it breaks down a lot of the barriers and allows more eyes to be paid attention to a cause that we're certainly very glad to highlight tonight.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. I always love being able to spread the love of our platform. And if it weren't for the support that we have of over 35,000 people that have donated throughout our platform, it would not be what it is today. I mean, we do very, very little amounts of marketing. It's a lot of word of mouth. We're going to be opening up marketing probably by the summer, where we're really going to start pushing it out and trying to get out there. But again, all the times in the news, it's because of all the donors. The donors getting the word out there of what we're doing. And it's so important to have verification in crowdfunding. And we're blessed to be able to give back to those who serve in a special way.
I want to conclude now with the segment that you've watched the show, so you're familiar with it probably, and that's the rapid fire segment. 5 hit and run questions from me, 5 answers from you. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
And you could say pass if you want. First, best advice anyone ever gave you.
Best advice anyone ever gave me. Oh my goodness. How fast do I have to answer these?
Listen, if you got to think about it, it's okay. No worries.
Best advice. Okay. This is actually really great advice in the business space and raising capital and talking professionally to people that, are worth billions of dollars, way out of my scope. But now I've talked to those people. I understand how to get on the same line with them and really have discussions with them. The first email I ever wrote to one of these executives, I wrote, "Hey," in the header. So in writing an email, I wrote, "Hey," comma, and then wrote my whole email. One of my founders from the first, Mitch Weinstein, incredible person. He's an insurance guy. He lives down in Florida. Absolutely incredible person. He called me and he went crazy. He said, "You do not say hey in an email. You say hi. You say good morning. You say, to whom it may concern. You never say hey. Unless they're your best friend, you do not say hey in an email." And even at the end of it, I closed it out, and I think I closed it out like "have a nice day" or something, which is a fine closing. He said, "Adjust it. Just say best regards." And that was the best advice that I ever got, because it put me in a focus line on how to really cater my emails and start writing properly. And now I write at a level that I never thought imaginable, because, as cops, we're illiterate, but I got to a level because of that. So that advice put me, and it was more, I don't even want to say it's advice. It was more like, you better do this or else, So, but that put me in a great position.
Y'all be easy, comma, Robert Garland. At the end of an email. No, it's the same thing for me, because I literally tweaked my greeting on my business email. As you probably saw, it's all the best, and then my information underneath. Right, and even though it sounds, 1700 London, it is necessary, because it further legitimizes you, generally speaking, when you're doing these business dealings, either for a foundation or, in my case, for this show. So, second, favorite squad room snack.
So I did bodybuilding for a long time. So in the squad, I wasn't a snacker. I would always pack my food. However, sushi was a great thing. And I wish I could get up. I'm not going to get up and show you this, but it's not really a snack. I was a tea guy, and
It's fine.
so I didn't realize until drinking all these teas, these Chinese teas down in Lower Manhattan, that I had celiac, and the teas were making me sick because there's gluten and wheat as a preservative. But let's call it a snack, because we used to come down after doing our search warrants. We'd go to this little tea house, and if anyone's done like real traditional Chinese tea, it's an incredible experience. And I guess let's say that was my favorite snack, so to say.
That counts. That counts. Third thing you love the most about Manhattan. We kind of talked about it earlier, but I imagine you can expand.
The most I loved about Manhattan. I mean, the experience was incredible. I wanted to start my career and say, hey, I was a Brooklyn guy. I worked 7'5", 6'7", whatever it was. But I wouldn't take it back for the world. I feel like I learned just as much on the job being a Manhattan guy, than anyone would have. It's a different type of job, but you're still learning the job. And best thing about Manhattan, I used to love, taking walks when I can, through the park, Central Park, walking around, walking up and down Fifth Avenue, just sightseeing, when you're not having to work, when you have a free time and can just relax for a few minutes. So I guess you could say that was my favorite part of Manhattan.
Fourth favorite bar or restaurant in New York City?
Del Frisco's.
I've heard that. I think John Miller told me Del Frisco's was his favorite.
Del
So you're not the only one.
Frisco's. Yeah, there's some expensive steakhouses in Manhattan, but Del Frisco's is the best steak I've ever had.
I have to go. I'm going to have to rob a bank to be able to afford it. But when I get my money up,
I'm not watching. Go ahead.
When I get my money up, hopefully I can make my way down there. Fifth and finally, let's say it's my first day on the job and I'm coming in the locker room, right? And you're there. What would you tell me?
First day on the job and you're coming in the locker room and you're asking me. Oh, man. I'd probably say, to be honest, I'd say to you, hey, Mike, is there anything I could do to you to better your career at this point? Even though you're brand new on the job, what can I do to better your career right now? How can I help you? Because a lot of guys are afraid to ask that question. The guy that's coming on brand new on the job, and he's just walking into his locker room, and there's a guy with 15 years on the job that's been through the experiences that I've been through. And listen, this guy's been through more experiences, but been through the experiences that I've been through. And a guy like me looks at him and says that, and he doesn't know anything about me. Now, he's probably going to say, this hairbag is just saying X, Y, Z. But I would hope that kid turned around and he'd say, you know what? This is what I want to do in my career. How do I get there? Hey, Bobby, I want to go to narcotics one day. I don't care that I just got out of the academy. I want to be in narcotics. How do I do that? And I would love to tell him. Love to. And I think there should be more people on the job like that. Camaraderie is everything. And unfortunately, it breaks apart at times. But right now, there's so much tight-knit camaraderie on the job. It needs to stay there.
Awesome. The hour's flown by. It's been great talking with you. And don't say goodbye yet. We'll say our goodbyes off the air. But besides Fun the First, and of course, besides what we covered with the tragedy on Friday night in Harlem, are there any other shout outs you want to give?
Nah, I'm not a big shout out guy. I'll end up being on here for about 20 minutes if you have me do that. My kids, Luke, Shay, and Colton. I know you guys always like watching whenever Dad's on something. So I'll show you again.
All right, there you go. My shout out, as always, to the audience. Angela Ang, retired NYPD officer from the 13th Precinct. Alicia B, looking here. Gina G, my sister's watching. Thank you. The Pranzos, Raquel and Peter. Ruth Ann Griffin, Margaret Hearn. Thank you, guys. As always, Christian Flood, retired NYPD detective, first grade from hostage negotiation. Thank you for stopping by, brother. And Bill Ryan, retired NYPD first grade detective from arson explosion. Was able to be here as well. Thank you, Bill. I appreciate it. So this has been a good pick-me-up after a very, very tough weekend. Of course, tomorrow we get another pick-me-up in the form of a very uplifting guy, Chief Joe Fox, who was formerly the chief of NYPD Transit for a while. Just a great, great guy and a positive spirit. He'll be here tomorrow. And Tony Giorgio on Friday, who ran the NYPD ceremonial unit from 1997 until he hung up his boots, so to speak, in 2019. He'll be joining the show as well. So busy week, but a good week. Again, I'd like to extend a special shout out to the 32nd Precinct for the loss of Officer Rivera and of course Officer Mora in critical condition. Of course, the FDNY for the loss of Christopher Viviano, and to the friends and family of my pal Dennis Smith. We're thinking about you guys. So stay well, be safe, and on behalf of retired, not retired yet, but NYPD Detective Robert Garland, and of course the founder of Fun the First, I am Mike Colón. and we will see you next time. Be easy, everybody. Take care.
Thanks.